Okay, so welcome everybody. Appreciate everyone showing up here. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to have actually, this is our first Lifeway workshop that we've done over Zoom. So you're all part of a new environment. It's pretty exciting. We're going to talk about ways that we can educate people and let people know about opportunities, the different guidelines and things that have changed since the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to say a prayer and then I'm going to hand this over to Jose Fong, who's going to be our host. But I did want to read one scripture. It's from Acts 2:42. It says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together in the temple each day, met in the homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared meals with great joy and great generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. In the midst of this pandemic, I just want us to remember that we are right now reliving what was happening in the book of Acts. Even though I realize we're not meeting together, we are getting a chance to meet over Zoom, and we are getting a chance to share with each other. We're getting a chance to meet each other's needs. And the purpose and the spirit of this workshop is so that we can meet the needs of people within the church and people outside of the church. So with that, let's have a prayer. God, I just pray for a successful meeting. I pray, God, that we can help and understand how we can better serve one another and how we can get our needs met for those who are in distress. Lord, I love you. Thank you for this time. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Jose.
Thank you, Mike. And it's very apt that we're able to have that mindset that in spite of the difficulties that we're going through, we still have resources and we still have a church. And I just want to say that in behalf of this team that has come together, very, very proud of the church that we're part of. And we really want to be able to put information out there that can be helpful during this time that is causing a lot of stress for different families. So I know currently we have 29 people, and I'm sure that some others are going to be able to benefit from this meeting. I just want to let you know that we are recording this meeting and we will be posting it in Facebook. So that's that. And also it's very encouraging that other parts of the church here in LA would like to learn about what we're doing here in Lifeway so they can provide that for their members. So that's why we're recording it. I want to let you know that we're going to have different presenters here, that they are great disciples of Christ. They are very passionate about what they do professionally, but they're very passionate about how to serve the church. So we're going to be hearing from different one of them. You might have questions that you might want to ask while you're listening in, or things that occur to you, and I want you to use that chat box that you have available so you can write your question. You can even write your question right now, so some of us in the team can read it and get prepared and be able to address that as we're presenting the information. So one of the things I want to do is guide you to a new resource that we have available. It's a site, and I'm going to be sharing my screen right now so you'll be able to see it. So you should be able to see that screen right now. And to be able to get there is lifewaycovid.info. Lifewaycovid.info. You can share that with your friends. This is a site that is gathering all the updated resources that we have found. We have a Spanish version that we are also updating, and we have a lot of different things that I think are going to be very helpful. If you know that someone will benefit from this, feel free to share it. This is not just for the members, but this is for friends and family. And if you go through this site and you see that there's something that could be enhanced so we can do a better job displaying, just click this link here on the right, which is the email address for our Hope chapter, and we'll be able to get your email and be able to read what you have. So there's different things here. We start off with just COVID-19 testing. People might come here and want to see how is it that they can get tested. I'm not going to go over that, but that's something you can see. Also, since this site has a lot of information We're going to try to put the most recent and the very top so you don't have to go through everything every time. And so with that, I want to start off introducing Luisa Taco, who's going to be talking about the CARES Act. I'm going to stop sharing here and go ahead, Luis.
Okay, can everybody see that? Let's see. Can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Luis. You guys know me for the most part. I actually work in government. I work in local government. I deal a lot with the federal government. I also work in an agency that deals with housing and entitlement programs. And I also in there work in technology. So I'm a little bit spread out in every other industry. But very excited to share a few things here. Want to start the conversation with the CARES Act. I don't know if you knew, a few days ago, the government passed a $2 trillion stimulus package that included the CARES Act. And what that was just a whole bunch of ways that the government is trying to keep the economy alive and trying to provide support for individuals and businesses to keep it going. Is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act. I'm not going to go too much into detail in the big picture, but just in the big picture, there's billions of dollars that are going to be given out to individuals, that are going to be given out to unemployment programs, that are going to be given out to local governments and small businesses to just keep things going, including in the health industry as well. There is a lot of areas that this is in specific detail going to address, but for the purposes of the workshop, we're really going to do the two that we're highlighting there. One is direct payments. I think a lot of people have been talking about that there will be a direct payment that'll be given to taxpayers that will come in different forms depending on your household composition. I'll go into that in a little bit. There's also going to be assistance on unemployment, depending on what you qualify. The eligibility has been expanded. There's been a boost of income there that's been given to that program to help all kinds of individuals. Payroll taxes have been delayed, as if you know. It's no longer due on April 15th. There are a few folks that are using retirement funds that's going to try to help them also, waiving off the penalties for withdrawals. There are others that are trying to use their 401k and they can receive loans. There's provisions related to charity and also for small businesses and a number of others. There's a lot more detail. You can reach out to me. You can click on the link. This link is going to be on the website as well to give you some information. So digging a little bit deeper into the cash payment. If you submitted your taxes last year or this year, and the government has your tax information, including your direct deposit information, the government within the next couple of weeks is targeted to submit basically a cash back option to you in the form of a cash payment. That includes up to $1,200 per person and $500 per child, depending on your household composition. So let me go into that component. And I think I really like this slide. And also, if you have very complicated taxes, you can also follow the link on the right-hand side. But you pick your line here, depending on the family composition that you have. And at the bottom on the x-axis, you'll see your level of income. And on the right, you'll see the assistance that the government is going to be able to give you. So if you're a family without kids on the lowest level line, really, it's really up to where you get $150,000 a year that your cash payment actually starts going down, and it's not the complete amount. So if you're a family of two, that's $2,400 that you'll be able to get from the government all the way up to $150,000. If you have a kid, then you go up a line. If you have two kids, purple. Like for me, I'm at the orange line. And so you can pick the line that best fits your family and try to calculate, and you should be getting something very close to the amount that's in this graph. It should be pretty soon. There are some special conditions based on what you have reported on taxes. If for example, you did do your taxes for last year, you may be able to claim those eventually as a credit. And so if the government doesn't also have your information, like your direct deposit information, the government will try to mail you in the mail a check. And if you don't receive the check, then you can claim a credit as well. More information to discuss, but this definitely gives you a gist of what's to be expected for your family. The government also is trying to boost the unemployment program. The unemployment program is a program that you can request assistance from the government if you lose your job or if your hours go down or you get laid off. And then eventually, what happens is the government is trying to boost this program in this way. So depending on your salary on this chart on the left-hand side, on the second column would be the benefits that you could basically get from the state on a weekly basis. This is New York, but California is identical. And this is what you would qualify on a weekly basis to receive for unemployment. And the federal government is trying to boost that by $600 a week during the period of recovery as well. More information also, we have that on the link. Now, one of the things that's pretty cool is that this also expands to folks that were originally not eligible, like gig workers or freelancers, folks that work day to day or they just freelance and are private contractors. The Department of Labor is expanding the coverage and it's also allowing states to be more flexible, but you have to have wage data and good tax records. And then anything really that you feel you are entitled to, there's a big caveat is that any deduction in pay or even in work has to do with COVID-19 related regulations, or if you have been quarantined, or if you lost contracts because of that, or if you've been sheltering in place. There has to be a connection between the loss of wages or your loss of income to COVID-19, and that has to be well documented for you to be able to be eligible and claim these benefits, and the federal government is definitely going to go after and audit that information. Also for student loans, any student loan that's federally backed, students are going to receive a waiver in their interest rate, and there are going to be a number of other conditions that apply to them as to when they can pay those back as well. For mortgages, any mortgage that's federally backed, there will also be waivers in interest, and also there'll be some certain conditions where you'll be able to repay any mortgage payment over a period of 60 or 6 months, any mortgage payment that you have not been able to pay. There are other regulations that are kicking in on the county or on the state side, and even some states are being a little bit more aggressive with these that are even more beneficial. There's very information on that, but definitely more to come. For small businesses, and this is going to get covered in more detail later in the presentation, there's a paycheck protection program. What they're really trying to do is keeping small businesses afloat, trying to give them up to 2 to 8 weeks worth of assistance just to keep the employees in their payroll by providing them refundable payroll tax credit. More information, if you're a business owner, you want to connect, we can talk about that more in detail. That covers my presentation here. I'll come back with more information on rent and mortgage.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Luis, for covering that. So obviously, that's a lot of information with different links, some of which are not part of this website, but we are going to try to provide that and put it here. But as far as the basics of the CARES Act, you'll be able to see it here. We're going to try to put a calculator, but you get the idea right here. So next up, what we have is food assistance. And for that, we have Jillian Samuel. So go ahead, Jillian.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jillian. I'm in the Lifeway San Gabriel English Ministry, and I'm just going to share briefly about some of the food assistant options that are available in the LA area. And so I'm going to share my screen right now. And so this is the website that Jose has been referring to, and then you have the food assistance section here. And I'm just going to briefly go through some of these links and what information they're providing. So the California WIC program, or Women, Infant, and Children program. So this is resources available specifically for families with young children, so babies and children under 5. Pregnant women and new moms as well. And it's a resource to get food to these families in need. And so on this website, it has information about if you are already a WIC participant and need to renew things or visit the offices, what the procedure is within the COVID-19 pandemic situation, as well as if you are applying for WIC. There's information on here about how you can get WIC and whether or not you qualify. And it asks that you call this support line to initiate that process. So for anyone who might meet those qualifications, this is a great resource. The next one that I'm going to briefly talk about is the CalFresh program, which is the SNAP program, or food stamps program here in California. And so actually on Friday, I believe they announced that all participants, that people that are already eligible for this program, will be receiving the maximum benefit for which they are eligible for as a result of funding from the government as a result of the pandemic. And they can, so if you already qualify, they will be giving you the maximum eligibility, but if not, they have definitely seen an increase in applications. And so they have provisions for that and they're prepared for that. So here on this website, and then there's also another link on the website that Jose was referencing. It shows the annual household income limits and has information about how to apply for the program. Yeah, it's kind of the biggest update there. I think they also extended deadlines for renewals and things like that as well. Next, I'm going to go through this website. So this is a general COVID-19 resources for LA website that has a lot of information about where anyone can find free meals in the Los Angeles County area. And so it has a few that I'm actually going to go through on here. So the Dream Center, World Central Kitchen, and then there are also restaurants around that are giving out free meals based on different eligibility. So the next tab that I'm going to go through is this Every Table. So they have set up a helpline to help connect people directly, if they call this line, with food resources that may be available in organizations that are providing those in the area. So it's a great resource to call, as well as they have information about grab-and-go stores and certain restaurants that are accepting CalFresh and EBT. So another just great resource for Angelenos. And then the Dream Center, which was mentioned on the website that I was previously talking about, is in the Silver Lake area, but they are giving out meals every day. You can see here for LAUSD students, families, and those in need from 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. for grab and go. And that's every day. And they also have some of the other things that they have going on. This is a map from the, it's a map from the World Central Kitchen, which just has resources in the Los Angeles area, and you can like filter things and find restaurants that are giving free meals, as well as other food pantries and things like that. And then finally, but not least, is the Los Angeles Food Bank locator site. So you would just type in your zip code here and it'll direct you to the food bank nearest your area that is served by the LA Food Bank, food pantry. And then finally, there's a link on there about the LAUSD grab and go food centers. for students, and they're open from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And on this website, you can find the map as well with locations for where one can go to find one of the LAUSD Grab and Go centers. And that's kind of a summary of the resources that we have under here. There's lots of things available regarding food assistance. And so if you know of anything as well, please let us know and we can add that resource.
All right, thanks so much, Jillian. And once again, we are updating that site, so whoever you want to direct to this webpage, you will be able to find that information. Next up, it's Luis again. He already covered mortgage relief, but let's talk about rent relief.
We've been hearing that this has been a big issue to some brothers and sisters, and also just in the general public. Can everybody hear it? And so the idea is that if somebody cannot pay the rent because of COVID-19, that landlords do not move forward with evictions. And this doesn't mean that you don't get to pay your rent, is that you just get longer time to be able to pay for it, as long as you can prove that it's because of COVID-19. And also, if a landlord tries to move and try to initiate an eviction, that you have rights and you have abilities to complain and raise the issue with your landlord, or raise the issue with the government about your landlord, to be able to be protected. The city, the state, the county, all of them, and then certain cities individually as well, all have different variations of the same idea. But the idea is that you'll just be able to have the ability to pay your rent, just taking longer than usual because of the financial situation. This is also something that's gone out to landlords all over California, and is the concept of not just not moving in with evictions, but also freezing rents, and giving people the ability to continue with the same rent, and even when they pay the rent later, come up with a payment plan or waive late fees, and also not to move against their own credit, declaring them that they haven't paid or they're paying late in their rent. This same concept overflows to mortgages, so the governor is doing the same thing about that. It's a 90-day mortgage payment relief idea and plan, to have a 90-day grace period to be able to pay your mortgage, and financial institutions not holding it against you on your credit. There are other variations where some are trying to get more mortgage companies to just let you skip a month, but that's getting a little bit of a pushback. But this is continuing to be discussed, and so more information to come later. There you go.
Very good, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So remember, it doesn't mean that you're not going to pay. It means that you're going to have more time to pay. Now I want to bring up Sandra Rodriguez, who's going to be talking about a few topics. The big one probably will be employment, and then small business resources, etc. So go ahead, Sandra.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Rodriguez. I'm with the San Gabriel Latin Ministry, and I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to add something that Luis had said about the rent and the eviction moratorium. In order for you to not have to pay your rent for an extended period of time, you have to notify your landlord. You can't just automatically assume that because you didn't pay your rent that ordinance is going to come into effect. So please make sure you read up on the ordinance and notify your landlord. If you didn't pay your rent for April, you need to notify your landlord that you're experiencing difficulties right now. Don't wait. Don't wait for your landlord to reach out to you. And like Luis said, you will have to pay that rent eventually. There's a time frame. So if you can pay your rent, do it, because if you hold off on doing it later on, you might have more of a challenging time to come up with the money for 2 or 3 months or however long you defer that rent payment. But I work for the City of Glendale in the Economic Development Division for the Community Development Department, and I do a lot of marketing and PR for the city. Basically, my role is to help businesses thrive right now during this COVID-19 pandemic. And that's kind of a challenge to do if your business is closed. So I do have a lot of information and resources that I can share with you if you do have a small business, not just in Glendale. Most of the relief that's being offered is across the board. There's federal relief, there's county relief, there's state relief programs. I'm going to share just a couple of things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining them. I will share my screen right now. And I can't find it for some reason.
On the bottom with the controls.
It was all there. It was there when we tested it. Now I can't, of all the windows, my PowerPoint isn't available. Oh well. I am not going to waste any more time, but basically there are a couple of programs that Luis touched on very briefly, and I strongly encourage you to visit the SBA.gov funding programs page for coronavirus relief options. And I'm going to share those links with you in the chat after I'm done, so that if you're interested, you can look at them. But the Paycheck Protection Program, which gives you an opportunity to get a loan that's forgivable to pay your employees. Basically, the spirit of this program is to keep you from laying off your employees. There are unemployment programs out there, but the goal is for you to keep your employees and not lay them off. So the Paycheck Protection Program, something that's really important for you to know is that loan, whatever you spend on payroll is 100% forgivable. But whatever the amount of the loan that you get, you must be able to spend at least 75% of it on your employees' payroll, on their paychecks, basically. And that is forgivable. But like Luis mentioned earlier, that's something that you have to document and be able to prove and show that you had these payroll expenses and were able to pay them back. Let's see. I'm going to try to share my screen one more time. Oh, here it is. All right, so there we go. So these are some of the programs that are available through the SBA CARES Act. I'm going to share that link with you later. One of the things that I really want to encourage you, if you are a small business owner, is to participate in this webinar that we're doing this week through the City of Glendale that I'm helping to coordinate. It's called Demystifying COVID-19 Resources. And we're going to have a special speaker from the Small Business Administration, the Deputy District Director for the LA District Office for SBA, and also Judith Velasco, who works, she's the Executive Director of the Verdugo Jobs Center. And we're going to be talking about the CARES Act. We're going to be talking about how you can help your employees, how you can keep your employees, et cetera. Let's see what else. I wanted to share a little bit about the EDD work sharing program, which is if you have a small business and you're thinking about keeping your employees on board, but maybe reducing their hours, the work sharing program provides assistance, basically in unemployment benefits to your employees, even though they're still on your payroll and you're still paying them, but you reduce their hours. So basically, this helps offset some of the income loss that your employees are having because you've had to scale back on their hours, so they can be receiving unemployment insurance at the same time while they're working for you. There are a couple of specific requirements that you need to be able to meet. Just to highlight a couple of important ones, at least 10% of your workforce needs to be affected by this, which means also a minimum of 2 employees, and the hours and wages must be reduced by at least 10% and not exceed 60%. So you can't be, your employees can't be working, 20% of their hours. It has to be at least on board for 40% or more. There are some restrictions. All this information is very easy to understand on the EDD Work Sharing Program website, which is listed above. Well, I'll also share that on the chat. And some additional business resources. If you need to talk to somebody, get some one-on-one advice, you can reach out to Bixel Exchange. The SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, there's one at PCC that offers a lot of resources and information. I've been participating in some of the LA Chamber of Commerce weekly, they have 2 webinars a week covering a wide variety of the COVID-19 business related topics, and they're really, really informative. They have some really, just really good speakers that are well informed. So I recommend that you do that. And this website is the ca.gov website, has a lot of the information that you want to be looking at if you're a small business, from the stimulus programs through the CARES Act, as well as unemployment information that Luis talked about, the extra funds for unemployment. There's a lot of caveats also for people who are having to take time off and using sick leave to take care of a sick worker, a sick family member, or they're sick themselves. There's more leeway for people for going through that. And one more thing that I wanted to share that I just learned about on Friday, Governor Newsom started this onwardca.org page, and it's kind of a cool matchmaking website where if you've lost your job, you go on there, you fill out a profile about what kind of work you're looking for, and they have a listing of over 70,000 job opportunities that they'll try to match you with. So that's kind of a cool resource. I kind of covered this really high level information without a lot of detail. I'd be more than happy to discuss it with anyone if they have specific questions about small business related aid that they need. If you own a small business, feel free to reach out to me. That's my email, elisoapbox@gmail.com. It's fairly easy. So thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Sandra. Wow, a lot of stuff, like as you said, and I'm very thankful for the expertise that different ones are bringing here. Next up, talking about the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act is Chris Nakaishi.
Thank you, Jose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Chris Nakaishi. I'm part of the San Gabriel Marriage Ministry. And for work, I actually work for a company called the Reliance Standard, and we are an absence management. We specialize in paid family leave. So this new legislation that has just passed falls right into that aspect. Before I go into the PowerPoint, and Jillian will pull that up, I want to introduce Gina Brown, who's a close friend of Jackie and I. She's a partner at Feldman Brown Oliveros, and she has devoted her entire practice to protecting the rights of California employees. Gina has successfully represented many employees in employment disputes involving discrimination, harassment, retaliation, wrongful termination. She was named to be one of the top best lawyers in America in 2019 and 2020. So I thank you so much, Gina, for participating. I'll let her just say a few words and additional introduction.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. The information so far has been so helpful, and I really appreciate it because I've learned a lot that I can pass on to my clients as well. I think this is, it's, as Sandra and Luis were saying, there's so many things being done to help businesses right now and provide that extra relief so we can try to keep people employed, and which is great. The ultimate goal, we don't want people losing their jobs. Unfortunately, right, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of issues that are coming up for workers too, and we're getting a lot of these calls, and you know, a lot of these employment laws are being tested for the first time in a pandemic. So we don't have all the answers right now, but there's definitely questions about, you know, what happens when we are getting laid off, and, you know, or if my hours are reduced, what can I do? And then there's people who need to take leave for either themselves or their family members, or because their child's school has closed. And then there's people who are having to still go to work and still have jobs, fortunately, but are terrified because their employer's not following the health and safety orders, and they're being, you know, forced to go to work every day and be exposed at a higher risk than other people too. So there's a lot of questions with the health and safety aspect of employment, and then are you entitled to an accommodation if you want to work from home and try to avoid those things and stuff like that. So I know Chris is going to go into a big one right now, and then I can hopefully answer some questions that if anybody has any questions about it.
Thank you, Gina. Yeah, so we'll go through this new legislation that just passed. It's, as Jose mentioned, it's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It actually was effective April 1st, or a few days ago. And it basically is for employers that, or for private employers that have fewer than 500 employees, and then public employers of any size. And so you may ask, well, how do you determine, you know, the 500 employee count? So if at the time the leave is taken, the employer has fewer than 500 full-time and part-time employees, then the employer is considered to have less than 500 employees. You may ask, you know, if the employee's workplace closed, can the employee take the leave? And then unfortunately, no. If the employee is not able to work due to a business closure or furlough, then the FFCR benefits are not available. So just be aware of that. We'll go to the next slide. So there's two kind of components to it. The first component is the emergency paid sick leave. And the act, this law requires private employers that meet their criteria, the fewer than 500 employees, to provide employees up to 80 hours of paid sick leave. And that's basically up to 100% of their salary, which is up to $511 per day, subject to a cumulative maximum of $5,110. And you have to be due to quarantine or seeking a diagnosis or preventive related to the COVID-19. Okay, so it's just not because you're homesick. It has to be specific to the quarantine or seeking diagnosis. The second part of that is also for dependent care. The pay will be 2/3 of someone's salary, up to $200 per day, a maximum of $2,000 in aggregate. And that's for if you're you know, having to take care of your dependents for purposes of a school closure, or that the child care services are unavailable. The nice thing about this is there's no employee eligibility rules for this, for the paid sick leave. There's no requirement of length of employment, so that's a nice feature. And you may ask, well, what about part-time employees? Are they eligible? Yes, employees that are part-time could be eligible and would receive a proportionate benefit to how many hours they worked. Okay, going on the next slide. So that's the paid sick leave piece of it. And then there's the protected leave. Jillian, can you move the next slide? Okay, there you go. Perfect. So on the emergency family medical leave side, it basically requires that employers that have fewer than 500 employees provide up to 12 weeks of job protected leave to care for the employee's child who's under age 18 if the school or place of care is closed or the child care provider is unavailable due to the COVID-19. So job protection is not paid, right? It's just you're protected from getting fired. But there is a component of the paid leave. For the first 10 days, it's unpaid. After that, the employers will pay a benefit equal to 2/3 of someone's salary, up to $200 per day, and then a $10,000 cumulative maximum for the remainder of the 12-week. Now, some people may know that FMLA, for federal FMLA, it's a 12-week time period. You may say, well, can I get, take this leave and then additional 12 weeks? It's not, it's a combined 12 weeks. So just be aware of that, okay? And for this new FMLA leave type, there is a requirement that you have to work 30 calendar days for the employer to be eligible, okay? Going on the next slide. Oops, I think we skipped a slide. Go back to Jillian, sorry. Yeah, here we go. So how do you qualify for that sick leave? I went a little bit out of order, but these are the 6 reasons if an employee is requesting sick leave and is unable to work or telework due to a need for leave because of the 6 reasons. I'm not gonna read through this. This presentation will make available, but these are the reasons that you can take the sick leave, and it's all related to COVID-19, okay? That's the key point. So I think the practical of this is that, a lot of employers, as Gina mentioned, they're maybe not up to speed. I'd say if you are in a situation where your employer is putting you and not abiding by these laws, a lot of times it's just a matter of you taking it to the HR department and letting them know that you're aware of this new law that passed, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to correct that situation. And if you get to a point where you need to escalate it beyond that, then you can certainly come to me and get my input, and I'll give you some input on the path to take. So that's kind of the practical of that. And I can engage, Gina if it's necessary, and I'll kind of gatekeeper that, okay? Thank you. Back to you, Jose.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Chris. And Gina, would you like to add to what Chris said? Thanks so much, by the way, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Chris did a great job going over the new act, and all of that is absolutely something everybody should take advantage of and let your employers know. I think there's so many employers, especially if they're dealing with layoffs and everything else, they may not be keeping up on all these new changes in laws. So I think it is important that you bring them to your HR department if you do have a question and say, is applicable to me, and how do I go about getting these benefits? And there are other leave rights in California, and certainly we have the FMLA, which Chris was talking about, and in California we also have California's version of the FMLA, which is the California Family Rights Act. And if anybody is pregnant or experiencing a pregnancy-related disability, you also have extra protection in California under the pregnancy disability leave laws too. So, and there's also, if you need additional time, if you actually are experiencing illnesses, you can also request additional time as a reasonable accommodation to your disability. So I will, let you open it up to questions or whatever you want to do, and I can answer any specific questions that anybody has.
Alrighty, excellent. Thanks so much, Gina. We will go into the Q&A in just a few moments, but I think that a good word to think about is the word, I think that we've heard it, the word fluid. I mean, it's been used in the news and everywhere. And I think that education is very important. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because you might know something that your HR department or your employer might not know. And this will be a good way to know your rights and take care of your family. So we will go to the Q&A, but before we do that, I just want to go over the latter part of the website. So I'm going to share my screen, and so you can see that. So we talked about a lot of resources that are available at the government level, and that is great, and we should be thankful that it's available to that. Very briefly, there's a section here where it talks about resources for those undocumented, and that is a part of our website that we want to continue developing. Obviously, there's a lot of other things in this site that are available for the undocumented, but there's some that might be going through hardship and stress, and so we want to be able to provide something for them, but that's still under works. But I want to let you know about that in case you have someone that needs some direction. And this whole site as you probably saw on the very top, is provided in Spanish as well. So we want to make sure that Spanish speakers will be able to find this information in a language they can understand. So that's that. Finally, there are resources that we as a church want to provide, and I want to let you know about them. And very briefly here, this is a time of stress and concern and insecurity and fear for a lot of people. And maybe what they need is not necessarily food or the knowledge of these things, but maybe something very important they need is just prayer, somebody praying for them. So here is, if you click here, you'll be able to go to a site, and let me share that with you. You open somewhere else, but basically, you know, people will be able to fill in a prayer request form. You don't need to put your name if you don't want to, but just let us know what you want us to pray. This team right here will pray for it, and our ministry staff. And also, if you want somebody to call you and pray with you, we'll be glad to do that. And we think that will be very encouraging and spiritually uplifting for you. So that's that. I also want to let you know that as a church, we have a benevolence fund to help in those needs that are urgent. Obviously, with everything that is happening, the needs are arising, and we are in discussion of starting a COVID-19 Church Benevolence Fund, and this will be a fund specifically for the effects of COVID-19. That is coming soon. We're talking about it, and we should have everything ready to go this week. And once that happens, you will have a form here where you'll be able to communicate the need that you might have and apply for some of that benevolence. Also, if you have a need that, you know, it's not covered in any of these things, for instance, we have some brothers and sisters that collect food from Trader Joe's that it gets distributed every week. So in case you have a need for food, then you'll be able to communicate that need. And if you click on this right here, it's another form. Let me bring it here to your attention. Hopefully are you able to see it, that form? Yes, okay. So basically you'll be able to fill in your name, your number, your ministry, and you know, the nature of your need and how urgent it is. So if you need food, you know, or if you know any of the families here in the church that they do not have food, we want to know. Obviously, you can call any of the ministers, small group leaders. If you know of someone, a family member that is elderly, that cannot go out to shop for groceries, we want to be able to help. So please let us know about that. And really quickly, in the realm of spiritual encouragement, here's the Facebook page where you'll be able to be part of our services, that they're very encouraging with worship and good news and all that. And if you want to be able to be part of a small group, or you know anybody that would like to be part of a small group that would benefit from that connection and that encouragement, you'll be able to do that. So at this time, I want to open it up so we can have Q&A, and once again, feel free to use the box. I've seen that the box has been somewhat active here, but if you have a question.
Jose?
Yes.
So there are two questions that came up on chat. One was, and I'll open it up to the panel. What if a person, the first one was, what if someone is experiencing anxiety, for an example, due to COVID-19 with having to go to work? Would FMLA cover that?
Okay, not necessarily. I think there's a whole bunch of different laws that could possibly apply. So FMLA generally applies to employers who have 50 or more employees. So the extension of that that Chris was going over, you might have the 2 weeks of pay if you had to take 2 weeks of covered pay off. But then if you do have anxiety, it's possibly a disability that your doctor could get you a note saying that you have a disability right now that needs to be accommodated. And then there's multiple things that you could ask for, either the the leave, a reasonable accommodation. I've had people call me who are experiencing anxiety at work. And if there's a situation where they could work remotely or, telework or do something that would be a modification to their normal work schedule, then that would be a request for accommodation based on a disability. So there's things that that workers should be talking to their HR departments about to say, hey, this is, I really want to do my job, but I don't feel comfortable under these particular circumstances, whether they're because it's, exacerbating my underlying medical condition, or because you're not providing the protective gear I need that's making me feel safe at work. Could you talk to me about a possible reasonable accommodation for my disability? And one thing would be in, teleworking and remote working conditions, because we're seeing that that's being done everywhere right now. And so that's something employers should consider. And
Gina,
go ahead.
well, let me ask you a related question to that, and you may hit this. It says, if my hours have been reduced to 2 days of work because of COVID-19, and now I claim EFMLA, is the FMLA only going to cover my new schedule or my entire week?
There might be, some overlap in that too. If you have a reduced schedule, you can apply for unemployment right now, and the unemployment benefits are, increased somewhat due to certain situations. But I don't know the exact answer to that. That might only apply to the part-time work schedule, but the FMLA is only a 2-week sick leave benefit. So I think you'd get paid for whatever period that you were working those hours. You're going to get 2 weeks worth of that probably. But I don't know how that would work, if they're going to cover the 2 weeks all at once, or if they're only going to give you a reduced portion of it through the family rights benefits, and then you get a portion through unemployment.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And another question we had was, what if a person isn't showing any signs or symptoms of COVID, and there's concerns the employer is not sanitizing the work area properly?
So that, I believe those are health and safety issues. So there are, the actual order that is in place, even if you're an essential business, says that you have to follow the CDC guidelines, you have to do social distancing, you have to have hand washing stations. And if you don't have those things, it would be a violation of the order. And then there's general health and safety rules that apply to all employment situations under Cal OSHA. And so I would definitely tell them to make a complaint to your HR department that you believe that this is affecting the health and safety of the workers, and you want them to follow the CDC guidelines and make sure that they're providing your employer is supposed to ensure a safe workspace, a space that's safe for the health and welfare of its employees. So if they're not, you do need to make a complaint about that.
Great. And there's one last question, because we're going to run out of time. But this is kind of a specific question, but I think it might be good for everyone. And if you see it on chat, it says, I work per diem and was working approximately 15 to 20 hours per week as per a verbal agreement. I was to start working 2 full days in May. After this week, I will only be working 2 to 5 hours per day. Do you have advice on where to start with regard to the possibility of increasing my pay? So it sounds like they've had a decreased work schedule, which was much different. And where should she go to discuss if there's any way to increase her pay?
To increase her pay?
Or to put the pay back that she was originally going to receive.
Got it. That sounds like a pretty specific question. So I would have her contact an attorney to go over her specific situation.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Because I think that's going to depend on multiple factors.
Okay. Great. So are there any other, go.
It's really quick one. I just qualify for my benefits. Today I got a notice from the unemployment, but I didn't see the additional 600 that they were gonna add with the weekly benefits. And calling unemployment last week just to ask that particular question. And unfortunately, they keep you on hold for a very long time and then they disconnect you. And it's been frustrating connecting with unemployment. Now, how would I know if I'm going to receive that money? It's my concern because, you know, what I'm going to get for my weekly benefits is not enough. And, you know, and hopefully I'm going to get 600 help.
That's probably more of a question for an accounting firm type thing. I think, Gina, I guess.
Let me think about somebody who might be good at, who does more on the benefits end, and but yeah, it's going to also be getting through to the right people. I don't know if EDD has online chats right now or something set up, because I can imagine how frustrating it is calling EDD at the moment.
It is because, you know, I do have you know, I have my account with unemployment, you know, and I wish they would notify saying, okay, so you do qualify or you don't qualify. There's no communication for that additional help. It just shows, you know, that I'm just qualifying for my weekly benefits. That's all.
Okay, so Sophia, I'm not, don't want to cut you off, but we are going to have to move on because we have the Spanish ministry or the Spanish workshop that we're going to be starting. But what I'll do is we'll make sure that either Chris or Sandra can follow up with you, which may be pretty helpful. Sandra's shaking her head yes. So we'll try to answer that specific question and we'll get you some help. So Jose, back to you.
All right, thanks so much. And I just want to thank all the presenters and their preparation, their expertise. Thanks so much for coming on and helping. Again, I mean, the situation is super fluid, and I just want to remind you that the website lifewaycovid.info is just serving as a hub for all this information. And if you need to talk with someone, text someone, email someone, you're able to find that information right here. So thanks again. We will conclude right here. And if our brother Rafael, you're here. If you lead us in a word of prayer to just close things out. Rafael, you here? Yes.
This time and pray together. And we want to thank you just for every single person that presented here, for their expertise, for the time they dedicated to be here, and to bless all of us and to bless many people as well that are here on this chat, but also will be able to see this later as well. And we understand that there's a lot of people that are going through unprecedented confusion and unprecedented times here. All of us are, and there are those that are especially feeling acute need because of these moments. I just pray you be with all of them. Help that all of these resources will be a blessing to as many people as possible. And we do pray for all those that are hurting, that are going through a difficult time, especially those that have lost loved ones or that are ill because of the virus, and that you help all those that are in the medical field, that you bless them and take care of them. I know Mike is one of them that are taking care of people on a daily basis. I pray you protect them and you help those scientists that are working on ways to help, and that you help all of us to be part of the solution by following all the directions from our government officials and health professionals to do our best part on our side as well, God. We love you and we thank you, and in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, everybody. Till next time.
Thank you, Gina.